You people don't belong in a store like this. Diane Fletcher's hand cracked across Keisha Washington's face before the words fully registered. The sharp sound echoed through the marble-walled boutique like a gunshot. Shopping receipts scattered from Keisha's grip, floating to the floor in slow motion. The boutique froze. Conversations died mid-sentence. A teenager near the jewelry display gasped, her phone already recording. "Now pick them up," Diane hissed, her wedding ring glinting under the crystal chandeliers. Keisha's cheek burned red, but she didn't flinch, didn't cry, didn't even touch her face. Her designer briefcase remained steady in her other hand, its subtle corporate logo catching the light. She made no move toward the scattered papers. Instead, she looked directly into Diane's triumphant eyes with terrifying calm. "Have you ever been publicly humiliated, only to discover you held all the power the entire time?" The store's PA system crackled to life. "Attention customers, Bellacourt Boutique closes in 45 minutes. Thank you for shopping with us today." Diane Fletcher straightened her blazer, satisfaction gleaming in her eyes as she watched Keisha Washington's motionless form. The red handprint on Keisha's dark cheek seemed to validate every prejudiced assumption Diane had ever harbored. "Well?" Diane's voice carried across the boutique. "Are you going to stand there all day, or are you going to clean up your mess?" Maya Monroe, 19 and a sophomore at the local university, had been browsing earrings when the slap happened. Her phone was already recording, Instagram Live activated with shaking fingers. The viewer count climbed 47, 89, 156 people watching in real time. "Oh my God," Maya whispered into her phone. "You guys are not going to believe what just happened at this fancy boutique. This manager just slapped a customer." The comments began flooding in. "Call the police! Is this really happening? What store is this? Someone record this!" Diane noticed Maya's phone and marched over, her heels clicking aggressively against the marble. "Put that away, we don't allow filming here." "It's a public space," Maya replied, her voice stronger than she felt. "And I'm pretty sure assault is illegal." "Assault?" Diane laughed, the sound sharp and bitter. "That woman was probably trying to steal something. I was protecting my merchandise." Keisha finally moved, bending gracefully to collect the scattered receipts. As she knelt, a first-class boarding pass slipped from her purse. Phoenix to London, tomorrow morning. The ticket landed face up, displaying executive platinum status in gold lettering. Nobody noticed, except the security camera recording silently overhead. When Keisha rose, she folded the receipts with deliberate care. Her movements were controlled, almost meditative. A silver phone buzzed insistently in her briefcase. 3 missed calls from board meeting reminder. Diane's assistant manager, Jake Morrison, emerged from the stockroom carrying inventory clipboards. At 28, Jake had worked retail for 6 years and knew better than to challenge his boss. He assessed the situation with practiced indifference. "Everything okay out here, Diane?" "Just dealing with some people who don't understand boundaries," Diane replied, never taking her eyes off Keisha. "You know how they are." Jake nodded, though something in his stomach twisted. The phrase, "you know how they are," had always made him uncomfortable. But challenging Diane meant risking his promotion to assistant district manager next month. Maya's live stream continued gaining viewers. The count reached 312, then 450. Comments streamed faster than she could read them. "Someone finds out what store this is. This is disgusting. Why isn't anyone helping her? Hashtag boutique discrimination." An elderly white woman named Patricia, 73 and a regular customer, pretended to examine silk scarves while watching the drama unfold. She'd witnessed similar incidents before. The subtle ways staff followed certain customers, the extra scrutiny at checkout, the assumptions made about credit cards and spending limits. She'd never spoken up before. Today felt different. The slap had crossed a line even her privileged comfort couldn't ignore. But Patricia remained silent, adjusting her pearls nervously. Diane grew bolder, emboldened by the lack of intervention. You know, I've been managing this store for 8 years. I can spot troublemakers from a mile away. She gestured toward Keisha. Designer knockoffs, expensive-looking purses probably bought at some discount outlet. You people always try to look like you belong. You people. The phrase hung in the air like poison gas. Keisha's phone buzzed again. This time, she glanced at the screen. Multiple notifications flashed. Emergency board call, 15 minutes. Phoenix acquisition review. Legal department, urgent. She declined all the calls with steady fingers. Ma'am, Keisha spoke for the first time since the slap, her voice calm as still water. I'd like to try on that navy dress in the window. Size 8. Diane's eyebrows shot up. That dress costs $800. I understand. Do you have a credit card that won't be declined? Maya zoomed in with her phone, capturing every micro-expression. Her viewer count had reached 627 people. The hashtag boutique discrimination was gaining traction, shared by viewers to their own social media accounts. Keisha reached into her purse and withdrew a platinum credit card. Not just any platinum card, a corporate American Express with Washington Keisha VP Operations embossed in raised letters. But she held it at an angle where only Jake could see the text clearly. His eyes widened slightly, but he said nothing. Store policy requires ID with credit cards over $500, Diane announced, making up the rule on the spot. Of course. Keisha produced her driver's license without hesitation. Jake glanced at the ID and credit card combination. His face went pale. He knew that corporate logo. Everyone in retail knew Megacorp Industries, but the connection hadn't clicked yet. 37 minutes until closing, the PA system announced. Diane snatched the items from Jake's hands before he could process what he'd seen. She barely glanced at them, too focused on her power play to pay attention to details. Fine, but I'm watching you every second. One suspicious move and security gets called. Diane pointed toward the dressing rooms. And leave your purse out here. I'd prefer to keep my belongings with me, Keisha replied. Store policy, Diane lied again. Keisha set her briefcase beside the counter, positioning it carefully so the corporate logo faced outward. The golden emblem caught the boutique's lighting perfectly, visible to anyone who bothered to look closely. But Diane was too busy savoring her perceived victory to notice she was staring at the symbol of her own corporate parent company. Maya continued streaming, her audience now approaching 800 viewers. The comments had evolved from shock to anger to calls for action. Someone had identified the boutique's location. Others were sharing screenshots and tagging local news stations. The storm was building, but Diane Fletcher remained blissfully unaware that she was standing in its eye. 25 minutes until closing, the announcement echoed through Bellacourt Boutique. Maya's live stream had exploded. The viewer count climbed past 200 as people shared the feed across platforms. Comments flooded the screen faster than she could track. Someone called corporate. This is 2025, not 1925. Get her name and badge number. Where's security? As if summoned by the digital outcry, 2 security guards approached the boutique. Marcus Thompson, a 42-year-old black man with 15 years of mall security experience, and his partner, Danny Rodriguez, 26 and relatively new to the job. Marcus had been monitoring the situation from the mall's security office after receiving reports of disturbance at Bellacourt. The mall's CCTV system had captured everything: the slap, the verbal abuse, the growing crowd of phone-wielding witnesses. What's the situation here? Marcus asked Diane, his voice professionally neutral despite the knot forming in his stomach. Diane's face lit up with vindication. Finally! This woman, she pointed at Keisha, has been causing problems. I suspect she's planning to steal merchandise. Based on what evidence? Marcus asked carefully. She fits the profile, Diane replied without hesitation. You know what I mean. Marcus knew exactly what she meant. The same profile that got him followed in stores when he wasn't wearing his uniform. His jaw tightened imperceptibly. Danny, eager to prove himself, stepped forward. Ma'am, we're going to need you to empty your purse and bags for inspection. That's not legal without probable cause, Maya called out, still streaming. Her audience had reached 1,800 viewers. Someone in the comments had identified the mall location and was posting the corporate phone numbers for both the boutique and mall management. Who asked you? Diane snapped at Maya. Security, I want her removed for unauthorized filming. Actually, Marcus said slowly, filming in public areas of the mall is permitted under our policy. Diane's face flushed red. This wasn't going according to plan. Keisha emerged from the dressing room wearing the navy dress. It fit perfectly, transforming her from victim to vision. The $800 price tag dangled from her wrist like an expensive bracelet. I'll take it, she said simply. Let me see that credit card again, Diane demanded, sensing she was losing control of the narrative. Jake Morrison watched nervously as his boss spiraled. He'd been trying to recall where he'd seen that corporate logo on Keisha's briefcase. Something familiar nagged at him. A logo he'd seen in company memos, perhaps? Meanwhile, Patricia, the elderly customer, had moved closer. At 73, she'd witnessed enough injustice to recognize it clearly. Her phone trembled as she opened her camera app. She'd never used social media, but her granddaughter had shown her how to record videos. This is completely inappropriate, Patricia whispered to herself, but loud enough for others to hear. Diane heard her and whirled around. Ma'am, if you're not purchasing anything, I'll have to ask you to leave. We're very busy. I'm a customer, Patricia replied with the dignity she'd inherited from 3 generations of privilege. I've been shopping here for 5 years. Well, today you need to move along. The dismissal of an elderly white customer shocked even Jake. Diane was alienating everyone now. Maya's phone was getting hot from continuous streaming. Her audience had swelled to 2,400 viewers. The comments section had evolved into a real-time investigation. Found the corporate number 1-800 Megacorp. Screenshot of the manager's name tag. Someone posted this on TikTok already. Local news has been tagged. A new notification appeared on Maya's stream. Channel 7 News is now watching. Keisha processed her payment with deliberate calm. The platinum card went through immediately. No holds, no verification calls, no declined transactions. The receipt printed with a soft mechanical whisper. Your total is $847.92 with tax, Jake announced, his voice barely above a whisper. Diane snatched the receipt before Keisha could take it. I need to verify this transaction. Verify what exactly? Keisha asked. Sometimes these cards are stolen. The accusation hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Even Danny, the junior security guard, looked uncomfortable. Marcus stepped closer, his hand moving to his radio. Ma'am, Marcus addressed Diane, you're making some serious allegations without evidence. I'm protecting my store, Diane shot back. It's my responsibility. Keisha's phone buzzed insistently. She glanced at the screen. Board emergency call, now. The caller ID showed Megacorp CEO office. She declined the call again. Is everything all right? Jake asked, noticing her phone's constant notifications. Just work, Keisha replied. Nothing that can't wait. The irony wasn't lost on her. She was declining calls from her own corporate headquarters while being accused of credit card fraud in a store her company was considering purchasing. Maya's live stream had become a phenomenon. The viewer count hit 3,200. Local news stations were monitoring the feed. The hashtag Bellacourt discrimination was trending regionally. Store security is detaining a black woman for suspicious credit card use, Maya narrated for her audience. She paid for an $800 dress, and they're treating her like a criminal. Turn that off right now, Diane demanded, pointing at Maya. No, Maya replied firmly. This is America. I have rights. Not in my store, you don't. Marcus intervened. Ma'am, she's in a public area of the mall. She has every right to film. Diane's authority was crumbling in real time, broadcasted to thousands of viewers. She needed to regain control. Danny, call mall management, Diane ordered. I want everyone removed except paying customers. Actually, a new voice interrupted, I'm mall management. Jennifer Walsh, the mall's assistant general manager, had arrived after receiving multiple calls about the incident. At 35, she'd climbed the retail management ladder by handling crises quickly and decisively. Ms. Fletcher, Jennifer continued, we need to discuss this situation immediately. Diane's face went white. Mall management involvement meant corporate reports, incident documentation, potential liability issues. There's no situation, Diane stammered. Just a routine transaction verification. That took 20 minutes? Jennifer glanced at her watch. For an approved credit card purchase? Maya captured every word, every facial expression, every moment of dawning realization on the faces around her. Her audience had grown to 4,100 viewers. The story was spreading beyond her stream now. Screenshots appearing on Twitter, clips being shared on Facebook, local Facebook groups buzzing with outrage. 15 minutes until closing, the PA announced. Keisha stood in the center of the chaos, wearing an $800 dress she'd legitimately purchased, holding a receipt for a completed transaction, surrounded by security guards, mall management, live streamers, and witnesses. The absurdity of the situation would have been comedy if it weren't so tragically familiar. Her phone buzzed again. This time she looked directly at the screen, making sure Jake could see it clearly. The caller ID read, Megacorp Board of Directors. Emergency Session. Jake's eyes widened as the final piece clicked into place. Megacorp Industries, the parent company that owned 60% of the mall's retail space, the corporation that issued his paychecks. And this woman was declining their emergency calls. Ma'am, Jake whispered urgently to Keisha, I think you should probably take that call. Keisha looked at him with the first hint of a smile she'd shown all evening. You think so? The storm was about to break and Diane Fletcher was standing directly in its path. 10 minutes until closing. The announcement seemed to trigger something in Keisha Washington. She reached into her briefcase with deliberate precision and withdrew a business card holder, sleek black leather with gold trim. Marcus, she said, addressing the security guard by name, though he'd never introduced himself. I think you should see this. She handed him a single business card. Marcus glanced down, and his professional composure cracked. His eyes widened, then narrowed as he read the card twice. Danny leaned over to look, his mouth falling open. What's it say? Maya whispered to her live stream audience of 4,800 viewers. The comments were moving too fast to read. What's on the card? Zoom in! Tell us! Marcus looked up at Keisha, then at Diane, then back at the card. His voice came out strangled. Ma'am, this says you're Keisha Washington, Vice President of Retail Operations, Megacorp Industries, she finished calmly. The boutique fell silent except for the soft jazz playing through the speakers. Diane's face went through a spectrum of emotions, confusion, disbelief, then dawning horror. That's not possible. Megacorp? Jake Morrison's voice was barely a whisper. He knew that name. Every retail employee in the region knew that name. The corporate giant that owned shopping centers, retail chains, and entire commercial districts. Jennifer Walsh, the mall's assistant general manager, stepped forward. May I see that card? Marcus handed it over with shaking fingers. Jennifer examined it carefully. The corporate watermark, the embossed lettering, the holographic seal, the QR code that linked to Megacorp's executive directory. This is authentic, Jennifer whispered. Her face had gone ashen. Megacorp owned the mall management company that employed her. They owned 40% of the retail space in this entire shopping center. Jake Morrison felt his knees go weak. Megacorp Industries owned the parent company that operated Bellacourt Boutique. They owned the retail space, the security company, and ultimately issued his paychecks. This woman wasn't just any corporate executive. She was his boss's boss's boss. Maya's live stream exploded. The viewer count shot past 6,000 as people shared the stream frantically. Comments flooded in. She's a VP? Plot twist of the century. That manager is so fired. This is better than Netflix. Someone call TMZ. But Keisha wasn't finished. Not even close. She pulled out her phone and held it so everyone could see the screen. The lock screen was covered with notifications. 17 missed calls from Megacorp CEO office, 12 text messages from Board of Directors, 5 voicemails from Legal Department, urgent, and 3 calls from Acquisition Team, priority. I've been declining emergency calls all evening, she said conversationally, scrolling through the missed calls. Calls about our acquisition of Bellacort's parent company, the deal I've been personally overseeing for 6 months. Diane's face had gone completely white. Acquisition? We're purchasing the entire chain. $89 million. I was here tonight conducting final due diligence before tomorrow's board vote. Keisha's voice remained eerily calm. Evaluating store operations, customer service standards, management practices, employee behavior. The words hit Diane like physical blows. Jake grabbed the counter for support, his promotion dreams evaporating in real time. You see, Keisha continued, Megacorp takes corporate culture very seriously. We've learned that toxic management creates legal liabilities, hurts brand reputation, and ultimately impacts shareholder value. Patricia, the elderly customer, had been recording everything on her phone since the business card was revealed. Her granddaughter had taught her well. She was capturing it all in HD, her hands steadier than people half her age. This was a test? Diane's voice came out as a croak. No, Keisha replied, her tone growing colder. This was me trying to buy a dress for my daughter's graduation tomorrow. The test was how you treated a black woman in your store when you thought she had no power. You failed spectacularly. Maya's audience had swelled to 8,500 viewers. News outlets were now monitoring the stream. Local TV stations had received tips. The story was breaking in real time across social media platforms. Channel 7 News is requesting permission to record, Maya announced to her audience, reading her phone notifications. Fox 5 wants an interview. This is insane. Jennifer Walsh was already on her radio, speaking in urgent, hushed tones to mall security headquarters. Corporate crisis protocols were being activated across multiple companies simultaneously. Marcus stepped back, creating physical distance between himself and the unfolding disaster. In 15 years of security work, he'd never seen anything like this. He'd witnessed shoplifting arrests, minor disputes, even medical emergencies. But watching a corporate executive get racially profiled while conducting a secret business acquisition? This was unprecedented. Danny, the younger security guard, looked completely lost. His training had never covered anything remotely similar to this situation. Keisha touched her phone screen. I should probably take one of these calls now. She pressed the callback button for Megacorp CEO office. The phone rang twice before a harried voice answered. Keisha, thank God, we've been trying to reach you for an hour. The board is in an emergency session. Legal is going crazy. What's happening down there? Everyone in the boutique could hear both sides of the conversation. Keisha had deliberately activated speakerphone. Robert? Yes, it's Keisha. I'm still at the Bellacourt location conducting the final assessment. No, we have a significant problem. How significant? Robert Monroe's voice was tight with corporate anxiety. The acquisition is compromised. We have a hostile environment liability issue, physical assault, racial discrimination, false accusations of theft, illegal detention, harassment of customers. Yes, all perpetrated by management. And yes, it's all been documented. Silence on the other end. Robert, are you there? Jesus Christ, Keisha. Documented how? Live streamed, going viral as we speak. Keisha glanced at Maya. How many viewers now? 11,000, Maya replied in amazement, watching the numbers climb in real time. 11,000 people watched employees of your potential acquisition target slap me across the face and accuse me of credit card fraud. The silence on the other end of the call was deafening. Jake could practically hear lawyers scrambling in the background. Robert, are you there? Jesus Christ, Keisha. Are you all right? Do you need medical attention? Legal is going crazy here. They're talking about lawsuit exposure, brand damage, SEC filing implications if this affects the acquisition. I'm fine, but we need emergency board consultation. This changes everything about the deal. Diane had sunk into a chair behind the counter, her face buried in her hands. Her 8 years of management experience were crumbling. Her authority was gone. Her career was over. The liability exposure is massive, Keisha continued into the phone, making sure everyone could hear. Discrimination lawsuits average $240,000 in settlements. But this isn't just about money. This is about corporate culture, brand reputation, and systemic issues that could cost millions. What's your recommendation? Robert's voice was tight with corporate panic. Complete management overhaul, immediate termination of staff involved, comprehensive sensitivity training for all employees, new policies, new oversight, new leadership, and that's just the beginning. Maya's viewers had grown to 13,200. The hashtag Bellacourt discrimination was trending nationally. Local news stations were dispatching crews to the mall. The story was spreading beyond social media into traditional news outlets. Or, Keisha continued, we walk away from the acquisition entirely. $89 million, 6 months of negotiations, but we protect our corporate reputation and avoid inheriting a toxic culture. The board is going to want a full report within the hour. They'll have it. But Robert? I need immediate authorization to handle this situation on the ground. The longer this live streams, the worse it gets for everyone involved. We're looking at potential class action lawsuits, EEOC investigations, and federal civil rights violations. You have full authority, whatever you need, just handle it. The stock price is already taking a hit from social media chatter. Thank you. I'll call you back in 20 minutes with a preliminary damage assessment. Keisha ended the call and looked around the boutique. Diane was crying quietly, her mascara streaking down her cheeks. Jake looked physically sick, probably calculating unemployment benefits. Marcus and Danny stood at attention like soldiers awaiting orders. Jennifer was frantically typing on her phone, probably alerting her own corporate chain about the crisis. Patricia approached slowly, her phone still recording. Excuse me, dear. I'm 73 years old and I've seen a lot of unfairness in my time. I lived through segregation, I saw the civil rights movement, I watched progress happen slowly, but I've never seen anyone handle injustice with such grace and power. Thank you, Keisha replied. Though I'm not finished yet. Maya's stream had become a phenomenon. 15,000 viewers and climbing. The comments had evolved from shock to awe to calls for justice. This is historic. She's handling this like a boss. Justice in real time. That manager picked the wrong woman. Black excellence. But Keisha had one more card to play. She opened her briefcase fully for the first time all evening. Inside, clearly visible to Maya's camera, and the growing crowd of onlookers, were legal documents with Confidential Bellacourt Acquisition stamped across the top in red letters. Multiple file folders were visible. Due diligence report, financial assessment, management evaluation, and cultural integration plan. These are the purchase agreements, she explained calmly, pulling out a thick stack of papers. Signed by our board yesterday. The deal was supposed to close tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. pending my final operational assessment. She held up a single sheet of paper with the Megacorp letterhead. This is my assessment form. Under management quality and customer service standards, I had planned to write acceptable or needs improvement. Diane looked up from her hands, mascara streaking down her cheeks like war paint. Instead, Keisha continued, I'm writing hostile environment, immediate management restructuring required, and systematic discrimination, legal liability high. Recommend acquisition termination. The boutique was dead silent except for the continuous ding of notifications from Maya's phone as viewers shared the stream across every social media platform imaginable. "Store closing in 5 minutes," the PA announced, oblivious to the corporate earthquake happening in real time. Keisha tucked the documents back into her briefcase and straightened her $800 dress, the dress she'd bought with her own money while being accused of credit card fraud. "Now," she said, looking directly at Diane, "we're going to discuss what happens next." The twist was complete. The victim had become the judge, and 17,000 people were watching justice unfold live. 5 minutes until closing. All customers, please finalize your purchases. The PA announcement felt surreal against the corporate crisis unfolding in real time. Maya's live stream had reached 19,000 viewers. The hashtag Bellacourt discrimination was trending in 12 states. Local news vans were arriving in the parking lot. Keisha Washington stood in the center of the boutique like the eye of a hurricane, surrounded by the chaos she'd unleashed with a single business card. "Diane Fletcher," she said, her voice carrying the weight of corporate authority for the first time all evening. "Store manager for 8 years. Salary, $42,000 annually plus commission. Last performance review. Satisfactory with noted areas for improvement in cultural sensitivity." Diane's head snapped up. "How do you know my salary?" "Because I signed the budget approvals for all regional management compensation." Keisha pulled out her phone and opened a corporate app. "I also have access to your employment file, disciplinary records, and customer complaint history." Jake Morrison watched in horror as Keisha's fingers moved across her phone screen. "3 formal complaints filed against you in the past 2 years, Keisha continued, reading from her phone. "All involving allegations of racial profiling. HR dismissed them as unsubstantiated because there were no witnesses willing to come forward." Maya zoomed in on Keisha's phone screen, though the text was too small for her viewers to read clearly. The comments exploded. "She has access to everything. This woman is unstoppable. Corporate receipts in real time." "Tonight," Keisha said, looking directly into Maya's camera, "we have 20,000 witnesses." Marcus Thompson, the security guard, had been quietly observing the corporate meltdown. As a black man who'd worked security for 15 years, he'd seen discrimination from both sides. He'd been the target, and unfortunately sometimes he'd been forced to participate when pressure came from above. "Ma'am," Marcus addressed Keisha carefully, "what do you need from mall security?" "Document everything. Your incident report will be evidence of potential federal civil rights violations. The DOJ takes retail discrimination very seriously, especially when it's captured on video and live-streamed." Jennifer Walsh, the mall assistant general manager, was on her 3rd emergency phone call. The mall's corporate headquarters was in full crisis mode. Their biggest tenant was imploding in real time, streamed live to thousands of people. "Jennifer," Keisha called out, "I need you to contact Robert Morrison from Bellacourt Corporate immediately. Tell him Keisha Washington from Megacorp is requesting emergency management consultation." "Robert Morrison?" Jake's voice cracked. That's the regional vice president, my boss's boss." "Yes. And in about 10 minutes, he's going to receive a very interesting phone call about tonight's events." Keisha's phone buzzed with an incoming call. "Megacorp Legal Department, emergency." She answered immediately, keeping the conversation on speaker. "Keisha, this is Amanda Monroe from Legal. We've been monitoring the social media situation. The video has been shared over 50,000 times in the past hour." "Amanda, perfect timing. I need immediate legal guidance on several issues: assault and battery, false imprisonment, racial discrimination under federal civil rights law, and potential class action exposure." "We're already assembling a litigation team. But Keisha, this could affect the Bellacourt acquisition. The board is asking if we should invoke the moral turpitude clause in the purchase agreement." Diane's face went white. "Moral turpitude clause?" Keisha looked at her with cold professionalism. "Standard language in acquisition contracts. If the target company engages in behavior that damages corporate reputation or exposes us to legal liability, We can terminate the purchase agreement immediately. That's $89 million, Jake whispered. Exactly. And right now, this store's behavior is jeopardizing the entire deal. Amanda's voice continued through the speaker. The social media team says the story is being picked up by major news outlets. CNN Business has reached out for comment. The NAACP issued a statement calling for investigation. Maya's viewer count hit 22,000. She was struggling to read comments fast enough. CNN is covering this. NAACP statement just dropped. This is national news now. Justice in real time. Patricia, the elderly customer, had been recording everything on her own phone. She approached Keisha with remarkable composure for someone her age witnessing such drama. Dear, I've called my granddaughter. She works for Channel 7 News. They're sending a crew and they want to interview you. Thank you, Patricia. That's very helpful. I also want you to know, Patricia continued, her voice shaking slightly. I've been shopping here for 5 years. I've seen how they treat customers who look like you versus customers who look like me. I should have spoken up before. I'm ashamed that it took this to make me find my voice. The confession hung in the air like a truth bomb. Even Maya's viewers fell silent for a moment before the comments resumed. White ally stepping up. Better late than never. This is how change happens. Keisha's phone rang again. This time, the caller ID read, Robert Morrison, Bellacourt Regional VP. That was fast, Keisha murmured, then answered. Mr. Morrison. Ms. Washington, I just received a very disturbing call from mall management. I'm driving to your location immediately. How far away are you? 15 minutes. I need to understand what happened before this becomes a bigger crisis. Mr. Morrison, it's already a bigger crisis. Your store manager physically assaulted me, accused me of credit card fraud, and attempted to have me arrested for shopping while black. It's been live-streamed to 22,000 people and counting. Silence on the other end. Furthermore, Keisha continued, this occurred while I was conducting final due diligence for Megacorp's acquisition of your company. I now have serious concerns about your corporate culture and management practices. Jesus Christ. Diane Fletcher? Yes. I've been dealing with complaints about her for 2 years. Legal said we needed stronger evidence before we could take action. Well, now you have it. In 4K resolution, live streamed to the world. Jake Morrison had gone completely pale. His boss's boss had just admitted there were prior complaints about Diane. His promotion dreams weren't just dead. His current job was probably over too. Ms. Washington, Robert Morrison's voice was tight with corporate panic. What can we do to remedy this situation? Immediate termination of all involved management, public apology, complete policy overhaul, mandatory sensitivity training for all staff, and a thorough review of your hiring and promotion practices. Done. Whatever you need. And Mr. Morrison, this conversation is also being live-streamed to 23,000 people. They're hearing your promises in real time. Maya's comments exploded. He said yes to everything. Accountability in real time. This is how you handle corporate discrimination. The store is now closed, the PA announced. Please exit through the main entrance. But nobody moved. The boutique had become ground zero for a corporate reckoning that was being broadcast live to the world. Keisha opened her briefcase again and pulled out a tablet. Her fingers moved quickly across the screen. I'm filing my preliminary acquisition assessment now, she announced to the room and to Maya's growing audience. Status: deal contingent on immediate management restructuring and comprehensive cultural reform. What does that mean for the employees? Jennifer asked, thinking about the hundreds of people who worked at Bellacourt locations. It means the good employees who treat customers with respect will keep their jobs. The ones who don't. Keisha looked directly at Diane. Won't. Diane finally found her voice. You can't do this. I have rights. I have a union. You have the right to face the consequences of your actions, Keisha replied calmly. You assaulted a customer, engaged in racial discrimination, and created a hostile environment. That's not union-protected behavior, that's criminal behavior. Marcus stepped forward. Ma'am, do you want to file formal assault charges? I can call the police to take a report. Keisha considered this for a moment. 24,000 people were watching her decision. Let's see what Mr. Morrison offers when he arrives. Corporate accountability can be more effective than criminal charges, if it's real accountability. Maya's viewers had grown to 25,000. The story was spreading beyond social media into mainstream news. This wasn't just about one incident in one store anymore. It had become a symbol of systemic change happening in real time. Mr. Morrison will be here in 10 minutes, Keisha announced, and then we'll see how serious Bellacourt is about change. The corporate showdown was about to reach its climax, witnessed by thousands of people who were documenting every moment of what real accountability looked like. Robert Morrison arrived exactly 14 minutes later, his face flushed from sprinting through the mall corridors. The Bellacourt regional vice president was a man accustomed to managing crises, but nothing had prepared him for walking into a live-streamed corporate meltdown. Maya's camera captured his arrival perfectly. 27,000 viewers watched him enter the boutique, his eyes immediately finding Keisha Washington in her $800 navy dress. Ms. Washington, he said, slightly out of breath. I cannot begin to apologize for what happened here tonight. Mr. Morrison, Keisha replied with professional calm, your apology isn't enough. We need immediate action. Without hesitation, Robert turned to Diane Fletcher, who was still seated behind the counter, mascara streaked and defeated. Diane Fletcher, you are terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you from the premises. Your final paycheck will include 2 weeks severance as required by law, but your employment with Bellacourt is over. Diane's mouth opened, but no words came out. Jake Morrison, Robert continued, you are suspended pending full investigation. You'll receive a call from HR tomorrow morning. The live stream comments exploded. Fired on the spot. Justice served. This is what accountability looks like. Real consequences in real time. Marcus Thompson stepped forward. Sir, I'll need to escort the terminated employee from the mall premises. Of course. Robert pulled out his phone and made a quick call. This is Morrison. I need immediate HR documentation for termination of employee 47291. Cause, assault, discrimination, violation of corporate conduct policies. Yes, effective immediately. Maya captured every word, every expression, every moment of corporate justice happening live. Patricia approached Robert with her phone still recording. Young man, I've been a customer here for 5 years. I want you to know this isn't the first time I've witnessed inappropriate behavior toward black customers, but it's the first time I've seen real consequences. Ma'am, if you're willing, I'd like HR to interview you about what you've observed. We're conducting a full investigation into all management practices at this location. I'll be happy to help. Keisha opened her tablet again. Mr. Morrison, I'm updating my acquisition assessment in real time. Your response tonight shows promise, but we need concrete systemic changes. What specifically do you need? First, mandatory unconscious bias training for all employees. Not a 1-hour online module, comprehensive in-person training with quarterly refreshers. Done. Second, a new customer feedback system with direct reporting to corporations. Anonymous complaints tracked and investigated within 72 hours. Agreed. Third, diverse hiring requirements for all management positions. Your leadership team needs to reflect your customer base. I'll work with HR on implementation immediately. Maya's audience had reached 29,000 viewers. The comments were a mix of celebration and calls for continued accountability. Don't let them backslide. This needs to happen everywhere. Real change happening live. Document everything. Jennifer Walsh, the mall manager, stepped forward. Ms. Washington, I want to assure you that mall management will be implementing similar policies. We cannot allow discrimination in any of our retail spaces. I appreciate that, Jennifer. Megacorp takes the business climate of our properties very seriously. Robert Morrison pulled out his company tablet. Ms. Washington, I'm issuing a formal corporate statement right now. It will be posted on our website, social media, and sent to all employees within the hour. He began typing rapidly, then turned the tablet toward Maya's camera so the live stream could see. Bellacourt Corporate Statement. Tonight, unacceptable discrimination occurred at our Westfield location. The manager responsible has been terminated immediately. We are implementing comprehensive reforms, including mandatory sensitivity training, diverse hiring requirements, and enhanced customer feedback systems. Discrimination has no place in our stores or our society. We commit to being part of the solution. The live stream exploded with reactions. Public accountability. Screenshot this statement. This is how corporations should respond. Don't just post it, follow through. Keisha reviewed the statement, then nodded. That's a good start. But Mr. Morrison, the real test isn't what you post tonight. It's what happens in 6 months, 12 months, when the cameras are gone and the social media attention has moved on. I understand. And Ms. Washington, I hope you'll consider allowing Megacorp to monitor our progress. We want to earn back the trust we lost tonight. We'll be watching, Keisha said simply. Marcus had quietly escorted Diane from the boutique. She left without saying another word, her 8-year career ending in disgrace and viral infamy. Jake Morrison gathered his belongings, his face ashen. His promotion dreams had become unemployment reality in the span of 2 hours. Patricia approached Keisha one final time. Dear, what you did tonight, standing your ground, demanding justice, creating change, that's courage. My granddaughter is going to write about this story, and I'm going to make sure she gets it right. Thank you, Patricia. Your voice matters too. Allies speaking up makes all the difference. Robert Morrison concluded his evening of crisis management. Ms. Washington, the Bellacourt chain will be a better company because of what happened here tonight. I hope the Megacorp acquisition can proceed with your confidence in our commitment to change. We'll see, Keisha replied. Change is measured in actions, not words. Maya announced to her audience, 31,000 viewers witnessed real accountability tonight. This is what justice looks like when it's demanded, documented, and delivered. The boutique began to empty, but the impact of the evening would ripple through corporate policies, employee training programs, and customer service standards for years to come. Real change had begun, live-streamed to the world, one honest conversation at a time. 3 months later, the Bellacourt acquisition closed successfully. The $89 million deal proceeded with new leadership, comprehensive cultural reforms, and Keisha Washington's full endorsement. Maya Monroe's live stream from that night reached over 2.8 million views across all platforms. She parlayed the viral moment into a journalism scholarship and now covers social justice stories for her university's award-winning news program. She learned that one person with a camera and courage can document history in real time. Patricia Williams became an unlikely activist at 73. Her granddaughter's news report won a regional journalism award. Patricia now volunteers with the NAACP, sharing her story about finding her voice later in life. She proved that allyship has no expiration date. Robert Morrison implemented every promised reform. Unconscious bias training became mandatory across all 847 Bellacourt locations. The customer feedback system resulted in 3 additional management terminations and dozens of policy improvements. Anonymous complaints dropped 60% as trust in the system grew. Marcus Thompson, the security guard, was promoted to head of mall security training. He now teaches de-escalation techniques and cultural sensitivity to security teams across the region. His experience witnessing justice unfold showed him that speaking up creates change. Diane Fletcher struggled to find employment in retail management. Her viral infamy followed her across social media searches. She eventually moved to another state and took a job in warehouse logistics, far from customer interaction. Her story became a cautionary tale about the permanent consequences of discrimination in the digital age. Jake Morrison used his suspension period for reflection. He completed voluntary sensitivity training and now manages a small bookstore that emphasizes community inclusion. He learned that staying silent in the face of injustice makes you complicit. The #Bellacourt discrimination hashtag evolved into #retail accountability, inspiring similar confrontations of discrimination across the country. Dozens of other incidents were documented, shared, and addressed because people found their voices. Keisha Washington was promoted to Senior Vice President of Corporate Culture at Megacorp. She now oversees diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives across all company holdings. Her daughter wore the navy dress to her graduation ceremony, calling it the dress that changed retail. These real-life stories prove that quiet power often transforms systems more effectively than loud anger. When we document injustice, we create accountability. When we demand change, we get results. The touching stories from that night remind us that everyday courage can create extraordinary change. Black stories matter. Black voices uncut create impact that ripples far beyond viral moments. Life stories like Keisha's show us that preparation meets opportunity in unexpected ways. Her education, professional position, and calm strategic thinking turned a moment of humiliation into systemic transformation. But most importantly, this story proves that justice doesn't always require lawyers, lawsuits, or legislation. Sometimes it just requires someone brave enough to document truth, someone powerful enough to demand change, and someone wise enough to choose reform over revenge. Real power isn't about getting even. It's about making sure the next person doesn't face what you faced. Have you witnessed discrimination in retail spaces? Share your experience in the comments below. Your voice creates change. Your story matters. Your courage inspires others. Hit subscribe to Black Voices Uncut for more stories where quiet strength transforms unjust systems. Ring the notification bell because every documented injustice becomes accountability. Every shared story builds community. Every view demands change. When we speak truth to power, power listens. When we demand justice, justice responds. When we create change together, the world becomes better for everyone. Welfare kids like you, your ghetto mama probably can't afford a car, drops you off on a bike like the charity cases you are. Carson Davis didn't wait for an answer. He grabbed Blake's backpack and hurled it across the cafeteria. It exploded against the wall. Then he swept their lunch trays to the floor, food their mother woke at dawn to make, now splattered across Bryn's only clean shirt. This is what happens when schools lower standards for diversity, Carson announced to 200 watching students, phones already recording. They let in people who don't belong. Reed Taylor stomped on their mother's sandwiches, grinding them into the floor. Blake stood slowly, movements too controlled. Bryn didn't cry, just stared at Carson with eyes that should have warned him. "We'll remember this," Blake said quietly. Carson laughed. In 72 hours, he'd be on his knees in this exact spot, begging these twins for forgiveness in front of the entire school. That cafeteria incident was just the beginning. What Blake and Bryn Brooks didn't show in that moment was the pattern they'd been enduring since day one at Riverside Prep. Day one, guidance counselor's office. Mrs. Patterson looked at their files, then at them, and smiled that smile, the one that doesn't reach the eyes. "So, basketball or track?" she asked. "You two look like natural athletes." Blake's transcript sat right there on her desk. Perfect scores in calculus and physics. National Merit Scholar semifinalist. She hadn't even opened it. "We're interested in the advanced STEM program," Bryn said carefully. "We both qualified based on our entrance exam scores." Mrs. Patterson blinked. "Oh, well, that's ambitious. Let's start you on a regular track and see how you adjust first. Riverside has very rigorous standards." They'd scored in the top 5%. The paperwork was right there. She just wasn't looking. Day two. Teachers butchered their names in every class like they were reading a foreign language. Blake Brooks? Mr. Henderson squinted at his roster. Is that Black? Blake, sir. Blake. Right. And your sister is? Brain? Bryn. Brynn. He didn't write it down. By third period, Blake had been called Black 4 times. Bryn had been Bria, Brianna, and once, inexplicably, Beyoncé. When white students got their names wrong, teachers apologized. For the Brooks twins, it was just Tuesday. Day 3. Remedial group assignments despite their test scores. Classmates assuming they were scholarship athletes, not academic scholars. The guidance counselor kept suggesting alternative paths that didn't include AP courses. Then came the cafeteria. The video that went viral, 2 million views. Half the school thought it was hilarious. The other half pretended not to see. By day 5, the pattern was carved in stone. Blake and Bryn walked the hallways, and students moved not with them, but around them, like water flowing past rocks. Carson's crew had made the twins untouchable in the worst way possible. The DMs were blowing up behind their backs. Group chats full of Carson's videos, laughing emojis, fire reactions, screenshots everywhere. Did you see how he just owned them? Diversity hires can't even defend their lunch. Why are they even here? But there was one person who saw everything differently. Sarah Ashley Martin sat 3 tables away in the cafeteria that day, phone out like everyone else. But she wasn't laughing. She was watching the twins' faces, watching how they didn't break, didn't beg, just cleaned up the mess with dignity that made her stomach hurt. She'd wanted to say something, to stand up, to tell Carson he was wrong. But her finger hovered over the share button instead, and she hated herself for it. Everyone sees it. No one says anything, including me. Coach Anderson saw it too. I walked right past the cafeteria when the trays hit the floor. Saw the whole thing. Keep walking. Later, when another teacher brought it up in the faculty lounge, he shrugged. Kids will be kids. They're just establishing the pecking order. The Brooks twins will toughen up or they won't. Principal Wilson's response was even worse. When Diane Brooks called the school that evening, voice tired from a double shift at the hospital, he had his secretary take a message. When he finally called back 2 days later, his tone was all bureaucratic patience. Mrs. Brooks, I understand you're concerned, but we've reviewed the incident, and there's no clear evidence of targeted harassment. Sometimes students have difficulty adjusting to Riverside's culture. Perhaps Blake and Bryn would be more comfortable at a school that's better suited to their background. Diane's hand tightened on the phone. Their background? They earned their place there. Top 5% of your entrance exam. Of course. I'm just saying academic performance isn't everything. Cultural fit matters. Some students simply don't mesh with our environment. There are excellent public schools in your district that might be less challenging. Translation: leave. You don't belong here. Make it easy on everyone. That night, Blake and Bryn sat at the small kitchen table in their apartment. Their mother was already asleep on the couch, another double shift starting at 6 a.m. Their little sister Emma, only 6 years old, was supposed to be doing homework, but she kept staring at the photo on the shelf. It was an old photo. 2 7-year-old kids standing on a podium, gold medals around their necks, international flags hanging behind them. Their faces were bright with joy, their father's hand on both their shoulders. "Why don't you do karate anymore?" Emma asked quietly. Blake's jaw tightened. "That was a long time ago, Em. But you were so good. You won everything. Dad said you were champions." "Dad's gone," Bryn said softly, "and Mom needs us to focus on school now, not fighting." Emma touched the frame gently. "You look happy there." They did look happy. That was before the car accident. Before their father died on impact and their mother's leg was shattered so badly she couldn't work as a physical therapist anymore. Before they packed away the medals and the uniforms and made a promise at the hospital. "We'll stop competing, Mom. We'll focus on school. Make Dad proud in a different way." 7 years. 7 years since they'd stepped into a dojo. 7 years since they'd competed. The muscle memory was still there. Blake still did forms in his room every morning before school. Movements precise and silent. Invisible to anyone who didn't know what to look for. But they'd made a promise. Later that night, when Emma was asleep, Bryn sat on her bed staring at her sauce-stained shirt soaking in the sink. Their only decent clothes. Their mother's carefully packed lunches, trampled. The casual cruelty of it burned worse than any physical hit. "We could end this tomorrow," she said quietly. You know that. Blake was at the window, looking out at the city lights. Mom made us promise. We left that life behind. We're here for education, not exhibition. And if they don't let us get educated, if they keep pushing us out? The question hung between them like smoke. Blake turned to face his sister. Dad used to say a black belt was a responsibility. We protect people. We don't punish them. Maybe, Bryn said. But what if protecting ourselves means showing them who we really are? Neither of them had an answer. Not yet. But across town, Carson Davis was posting another video, mocking the diversity admits who thought they belonged at Riverside Prep. The views were climbing. The comments were vicious. And by morning, the whole school would be talking about it again. The twins had stayed silent for 5 days, patient, dignified, controlled. But silence isn't surrender, it's a strategy. And Carson Davis was about to find out exactly what that meant. Wednesday morning arrived with dread that sat heavy in your chest. Assembly day at Riverside Prep, 600 students crammed into the auditorium for announcements nobody cared about. But this Wednesday would be different. Blake and Bryn walked in and immediately felt the eyes. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Carson's latest video had gone viral overnight. 3 million views of him reenacting the cafeteria incident like a nature documentary. Here we see the diversity admits in their natural habitat, unable to defend themselves. They found seats in the middle, trying to be invisible. It didn't work. Carson and his crew sat front row center. Reed Taylor was already filming. Principal Wilson droned through announcements about homecoming and a bake sale. Then his tone shifted, became cheerful. And now, as part of our commitment to inclusivity, I'd like to invite our newest students to the stage. Blake and Bryn Brooks, please come up. The twins froze. This wasn't on the program. Don't be shy, Principal Wilson said, gesturing to them forward. 600 students turned to stare. Phones came out. They had no choice. They stood and walked down the aisle. That's when Carson's foot shot out. Blake saw it coming but couldn't stop. His shoe caught Carson's ankle and he stumbled forward, catching himself at the last second. Laughter exploded through the auditorium, real, loud, mocking. Careful, diversity higher, Carson called out, loud enough for the microphones. Wouldn't want you to sue us for emotional damage. More laughter. Principal Wilson's smile tightened, but he said nothing. The twins kept walking, faces neutral, but Bryn's hands clenched, knuckles white, a fighter's reflex barely suppressed. They reached the stage, stood under the lights. Then someone threw a crumpled paper ball. It hit Bryn in the head, not hard enough to hurt, hard enough to humiliate. Principal Wilson cleared his throat weakly. Students, let's show respect. But Carson was already standing, moving toward the stage with the confidence of someone who'd never faced consequences. Reed followed, camera rolling. Principal Wilson, sir, Carson said, voice dripping with false politeness. Since we're welcoming them, why don't we see what they can do? What special skills got them in here? The auditorium went silent. Carson, sit down, Principal Wilson said weakly. Come on, Carson pressed. Athletes demonstrate skills, musicians perform. What can the Brooks twins show us? Dance? Rap? Or did you just check the right boxes? Students shifted uncomfortably. Most kept their phones up. This was content. Blake felt Bryn's hand brush his, a silent question. He nodded. Bryn stepped to the microphone, voice steady. We can handle ourselves. If Carson wants to see what we can do, we're happy to demonstrate. Shocked silence. Nobody expected that. Carson's grin widened. Oh, it's on. You think you can step to me? To us? Friday, Blake said, voice carrying without the microphone. After school. The gym. You and Reed versus us. Sparring demonstration for the whole school. Carson laughed, but something sharp edged it. A fight? You're challenging me? Not a fight, Bryn corrected. A demonstration. School sanctioned. Show everyone what we're capable of. Unless you're afraid? The crowd murmured. That word afraid hung like a hook. Carson couldn't let it stand. Afraid? Of you two? Carson's voice rose. Yeah, we'll do it. Friday, 4 o'clock. And when I'm done, you're gonna stand up and admit you don't belong here. That your charity case is taking up space. Blake's expression didn't change. And when we win, you apologize, publicly, to every student here, for everything. When you win, Carson was shouting, when I win, you both transfer out. Tell everyone you couldn't cut it. Principal Wilson found his voice. This is inappropriate. It's just a demonstration, sir. Carson cut him off. School spirit. Character development, right? The principal had lost control. Fine, Bryn said. Friday, 4 o'clock. Gym. The whole school watches. When this is over, everyone will know who belongs here. Carson stepped closer. You're going to regret this. I'm going to make you wish you'd never walked through our doors. We'll see, Blake said. Then, looking into Reed's camera, make sure you get it all on video. People will want to watch this more than once. The assembly dissolved into chaos. Students pulled out phones, texting, posting. Within minutes, number Riverside Showdown was trending locally. By lunch, it spread across 3 states. Carson and his crew strutted out like conquering heroes, already planning moves. Blake and Bryn took a side door, away from cameras. Sarah Ashley Martin caught them in the hallway. Are you serious? She said. Carson's trained in martial arts since he was 10. Reed's got 50 pounds on you. He's going to try to hurt you. Blake looked at her, really looked, and she saw something in his eyes that made her breath catch. Not fear, not anger. Something controlled and patient and dangerous. We're serious, he said. They walked away, shoulders straight, heads high. Sarah pulled out her phone and searched. Blake and Bryn Brooks martial arts. Nothing. Brooks, twins, competition. Nothing. No digital footprint, no tournament photos. Either they were delusional, about to get humiliated, or hiding something big. She kept searching. 3 days to figure out what. The news spread fast. By lunch, the entire school knew. Teachers whispered in hallways. Students placed bets heavily favoring Carson. The smart money said the twins would back out before Friday. The optimistic money said they'd last 30 seconds. Nobody bet on the twins winning? Nobody. That afternoon, Coach Anderson pulled Carson aside in the gym. You sure about this? Those kids are scrawny. You could really hurt them. Carson grinned. That's the point, Coach. They need to learn their place. Besides, it's just sparring. School sanctioned, remember? Coach Anderson frowned, but didn't push it. Keep it clean. No serious injuries. I don't want lawsuits. Don't worry, Coach. I'll be gentle. At first. Across campus, in an empty classroom, Blake and Bryn sat in silence. The weight of what they'd done settling in. Mom's going to find out, Bryn said quietly. Blake nodded. Yeah. She's going to remember the promise we made. Yeah. Are we doing the right thing? Blake was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Dad used to say a black belt was about knowing when to fight and when to walk away. We've been walking away for 5 days. Maybe it's time to show them what happens when we stand still. Bryn looked at her brother. 7 years since they'd competed. 7 years since they'd shown anyone what they could really do. 7 years of hiding, of pretending, of being less than they were. Friday, she said. We do this Dad's way. Controlled, precise, nothing extra. Just enough to teach the lesson. Blake nodded. Just enough. Outside, the sun was setting. Somewhere in the city, their mother was finishing her shift at the hospital, unaware that in 72 hours, her children would break the promise she'd made them swear 7 years ago. The countdown had begun, and Riverside Prep had no idea what was coming. By the time school ended Wednesday, the assembly video had been shared 10,000 times. The terms were being discussed everywhere. Cafeteria tables, group chats, Instagram stories. If the twins lost, public apology in front of the entire school, admitting they didn't belong, then voluntary transfer out of Riverside Prep. If Carson and Reed lost, public apology for their behavior, admission they lied about the diversity hire claims, plus 50 hours of community service. By Thursday morning, Carson was holding court at his locker, demonstrating moves. First hard hit, they'll fold, he said, throwing a punch in slow motion. I've been training since I was 10. Reed's got the weight advantage. This is gonna be over in under a minute. Someone filmed it. Another 1,000,000 views by lunch. The betting pools got serious. The odds were brutal, 15-1 against the twins. Nobody actually believed Blake and Bryn could win. Nobody except Sarah Ashley Martin, who'd spent all night searching and found nothing, which somehow made her more suspicious. Thursday afternoon, Coach Anderson called everyone into his office. Carson, Reed, Blake, Bryn, and Principal Wilson as witnesses. This is against my better judgment, Principal Wilson said, signing a form. But since both parties insist, and parents have been notified, we'll allow this demonstration. Rules. Coach Anderson referees. No strikes to the face. No serious harm. First to yield or 3-point score wins. Understood? Everyone nodded. Carson leaned back, smirking. Just so we're clear when they lose. They apologize at Monday's assembly, right? Admit they don't belong, then they're gone? That's the agreement, Principal Wilson said. And when you lose, Bryn said quietly, you apologize for every racist thing you've said, admit you lied, and spend 50 hours helping people instead of hurting them. Carson's smirk widened. Sure, when I lose. Which won't happen. They all signed. It was official now. Binding. As they left, Reed pulled Carson aside. Man, you sure? What if they're actually good? Carson laughed. At what? Look at them. They're small, scared, and never throw a punch. This is gonna be easy. But Reed couldn't shake it. Something about how the twins moved. Too calm, too controlled. That evening, Diane Brooks came home at 9 p.m., exhausted. She saw the missed call from Riverside Prep, listened to the voicemail about a sanctioned sparring demonstration. Her hand tightened on the phone. She knew that phrase. It's what they called competitions when Blake and Bryn were 7. Before everything fell apart, she walked to their room, found them doing homework. A sparring demonstration? Her voice was quiet, dangerous. You want to tell me what's going on? Blake spoke carefully. Mom, they've been pushing us every day. The cafeteria, they threw our food on the floor. The food you woke up at 5 a.m. to make. Stomped on it. Called us charity cases in front of everyone. Diane's jaw tightened. She'd seen the stains on Bryn's shirt. So you challenged them to a fight? Not a fight, Bryn said. A demonstration. We're not trying to hurt anyone. We just want to show them they can't treat people like that. After your father died, Diane said, voice shaking. After I got hurt in that accident, I made you promise. No more competitions, no more violence. You swore. This isn't violence, Mom, Blake said. It's justice. Justice that looks like violence is still violence. Silence. Diane looked at her children, these kids who'd given up everything 7 years ago, who'd packed away medals and dreams to focus on school, who'd suffered in silence for 5 days. She touched her leg, the one that never healed right from the accident that killed her husband. What happens when you win? She asked quietly. Not if, when. They apologize, Bryn said, publicly, for everything. And if you lose? Blake met his mother's eyes. We won't. Diane wanted to stop them. But she saw the look in their eyes, the same look their father used to get. Calm, focused, unshakable. Your father used to say a black belt was a responsibility, she whispered. You protect those who can't protect themselves. We're protecting ourselves, Blake said, and the next kids who come after us. Diane closed her eyes, remembered her husband's voice, remembered Blake and Bryn at 7, precise, beautiful, unstoppable. You stay controlled, she finally said. You don't hurt them more than necessary. You show them what you are, then walk away. No revenge, no anger, just the truth. Blake and Bryn nodded. And tomorrow, Diane added, I'm taking the day off work. I'm going to be there. If my children are going to show that school who they really are, their mother is going to watch. Thursday night, Blake and Bryn couldn't sleep. The weight of tomorrow pressed down like a physical thing. At 2 a.m., Bryn gave up, slipped out of bed, and pulled a box from the back of her closet. The box was small, dusty, wrapped in an old shirt. She hadn't opened it in 7 years. Her hands trembled as she lifted the lid. Inside, 2 small gold medals on faded ribbons, a competition program printed in Korean and English, a photograph that made her breath catch. Blake appeared in the doorway, didn't say anything, just sat down beside his sister. The photo told everything. 2 7-year-olds on a podium, arms raised, smiles wide enough to split their faces. Behind them, flags from 30 countries, an arena packed with 8,000 people on their feet. Seoul, Bryn whispered. Junior World Championships. We were the youngest ever. Blake picked up one of the medals, heavy for something so small. Synchronized Patterns Division. Gold. The memories came flooding back in fragments, sharp, vivid, unstoppable. Flashback. Age 5, Dad's dojo. Their father, Daniel Brooks, was kneeling so he was eye level with his children. 3rd-degree black belt. Former professional competitor. eyes that saw everything. Taekwondo isn't about fighting, he said. It's about knowing you have power and choosing when to use it. Can you handle that responsibility? They nodded, not really understanding. There were 5. They just wanted to be like Dad. Age 6. The discipline. 5A. M. Wake-ups. Forms until their legs shook. Meditation until they could slow their heartbeats by thought alone. Their father's voice is constant, patient, demanding. Again, cleaner. Precision isn't close enough, it's perfect or it's nothing. Other kids played video games. Blake and Bryn learned to move like water. Age 7. Soul. The moment that changed everything. Junior World Championships. The arena was massive, 8,000 people in the stands. 30 countries were represented, television cameras everywhere. Blake and Bryn were terrified. You know what to do, their father said backstage, hands on their shoulders. You've done this 1,000 times in practice. Just do it once more, together. They walked onto that mat, 2 7-year-old kids in traditional dobaks, and the crowd actually laughed. So small, so young, how could they possibly compete? Then the music started. 3 minutes of perfect synchronization. Every block, every strike, every kick executed with precision that adult competitors couldn't match. They moved like mirror images, like one mind split into 2 bodies, like forces of nature given human form. The crowd went silent. Then it erupted. Standing ovation. 8,000 people. All of them. The judges conferred for less than 30 seconds. Perfect 10s across the board. Gold medal, championship title, youngest winners in tournament history. Their father lifted them both, one in each arm, and the photo captured that moment, pure joy, pure pride, pure love. That was the peak. 6 months later, everything shattered. Driving home from a regional competition, Blake and Bryn in the back seat, still wearing their medals. Their father is talking about training for the next Junior Worlds. Their mother is planning how to manage the travel costs. Then the intersection. The truck that ran the red light. The impact that turned their world into screaming metal and shattered glass. Their father died on impact. The doctors said he didn't suffer. Blake and Bryn, in the back seat, walked away with bruises. Their mother's leg was crushed. 3 surgeries couldn't fully repair it. Her career as a physical therapist over in 1 second. The hospital, 3 weeks later. Their mother, leg in a cast, face hollowed by grief and pain medication, looked at her 8-year-old children. I need you to promise me something, she said, voice barely above a whisper. No more competitions. No more tournaments. Pack away the medals. We focus on school now. On building a normal life. Your father would want you to have that. Can you promise me? Blake and Bryn looked at each other. 8 years old and already fluent in the language of sacrifice. We promise, Mom. The years that followed. Medals in a box. Doughbox to the back of the closet. The dojo invitations declined, one by one. Their father's friends from the martial arts community reached out, offered to train them for free. Their mother declined every offer. Too many memories, too much pain, but the muscle memory didn't disappear. Blake still woke at 5 a.m., ran through forms in his room, silent, precise, invisible. Bryn still practiced breathing techniques, meditation, the mental control their father had drilled into them. They just did it quietly, alone, hidden, training in the shadows while the world forgot who they'd been. Present moment, 2 a.m., holding ghosts. Blake and Bryn sat on the floor, the old photo between them. 2 7-year-olds on top of the world, before tragedy, before loss, before they learned that being exceptional came with a cost. Remember what Dad used to say? Blake whispered. Real strength is knowing when to fight and when to walk away. We've been walking away, Bryn replied. For 7 years. Maybe it's time to show them what happens when we stand still. Bryn looked at the photograph, those 2 kids who'd conquered the world before the world broke them. We do this his way, she said. Controlled, precise. We don't hurt them more than we have to. We just show them the truth. The truth, Blake agreed. That we belong anywhere we choose to be. That we earned our place. That we're not who they think we are. They sat there until sunrise, holding on to memories and medals and the ghost of their father's voice. Power without control is just chaos. Compassion without strength is just words. You need both. Always both. Tomorrow they'd show Riverside Prep what that meant. Tomorrow they'd honor their father by being exactly who he raised them to be. Tomorrow the 7 years of silence would end, and the world would see the champions again. Blake carefully placed the medals back in the box, but this time he didn't close the lid, didn't hide them away. Win or lose, he said quietly, we stop hiding. Bryn nodded. We stop hiding. Outside, the sky was turning gray with pre-dawn light. Friday was coming. The demonstration, the revelation, the reckoning. Everything their father had taught them, discipline, control, compassion wrapped in strength, would be tested in front of 400 students and a boy who had no idea what he'd awakened. Carson Davis thought he was fighting charity cases. He was about to face legends. And legends don't beg, they don't break, they don't hide. They teach. One final lesson before the sun rose. Blake and Bryn stood together in their small room, moving through a synchronized form they hadn't performed in 7 years. Muscle memory took over. Precision returned like it had never left. Their bodies remembered what their hearts had never forgotten. They were ready. Friday arrived like a storm everyone saw coming, but nobody could stop. By 3:30, the gym was packed. 400 students lined the walls, sat on bleachers, crowded around the mat Coach Anderson had rolled out in the center. Phones were everywhere. This was going to be documented from every angle. Carson and Reed arrived early, shadowboxing, stretching, playing to the crowd. Carson wore athletic gear that probably cost more than the Brooks family's monthly grocery budget. He looked confident, ready, like this was just another day. 30 seconds, he told Reed, loud enough for nearby students to hear. That's all this is going to take. First hard hit, they fold. The betting pool had closed. Final odds, 20-1 against the twins. Someone had put down $500 on Carson. Nobody had bet serious money on Blake and Bryn. Except Sarah Ashley Martin, who'd spent 3 days searching and found something impossible. Nothing. 2 kids with 0 digital footprint in martial arts. That wasn't normal. That was intentional. At 3:45, Blake and Bryn walked in. The crowd's reaction was immediate laughter, whispers, sympathetic groans. The twins looked small. Blake was maybe 5'7", lean but not muscular. Bryn is even smaller. They wore simple athletic clothes. Barefoot like this was some traditional ceremony. But their faces made Sarah's breath catch. No fear, no anger, just calm from absolute certainty. Behind them came Diane Brooks, moving slowly, favoring her bad leg. She found a spot against the wall where she could see everything. Her face was unreadable, but her eyes were fierce. She'd taken the day off work to be here, to witness her children break the promise she'd made them swear 7 years ago. Coach Anderson stepped to center. This is a supervised demonstration, not a street fight. Rules. No strikes to the face. No intentional injury. First to yield or 3 points wins. I'm the referee. My word is final. Understood? Carson nodded, grinning. Blake and Bryn bowed slightly, a traditional gesture that made students snicker. Fighters. Centermat. The 4 stepped forward. Carson and Reed on one side, Blake and Bryn on the other. The gym went quiet, that electric silence before something irreversible happens. Begin. Carson charged at Bryn, fist aimed at her shoulder within rules but meant to hurt. Bryn sidestepped. Simple, just a step left. But Carson's fist cut empty air, momentum carrying him past. Reed came at Blake, throwing a wide hook. Blake ducked smooth, controlled, like he'd seen it coming from miles away. 3 seconds. 4 attacks thrown. 0 landed. Lucky, Carson muttered. He came again, jab, cross, low kick. Bryn moved like water around each strike. Footwork minimal, precise, geometric. She was never where his attacks landed. Blake faced Reed's bullrush, pure size, trying to overwhelm. Blake pivoted, redirecting Reed's momentum with the lightest touch. Reed stumbled, turned frustrated. 15 seconds, 8 strikes, still 0 contact. The crowd started noticing. Have they been hit yet? No, but they're not fighting back. Blake and Bryn weren't attacking, just defending, moving, breathing steady while Carson and Reed huffed. Carson threw a harder punch at Blake's ribs, real force behind it. Blake's hand caught Carson's wrist mid-strike and gently guided it past. For half a second, Carson felt the grip strength. Blake's fingers were iron. Then Blake let go, stepped back, hands returning to neutral. Carson's eyes widened. That wasn't normal. Come on! Reed launched combinations at Bryn. She slipped each by inches, breathing never changing in 4 counts, out 6 counts. Ancient rhythm. Meditation in motion. The crowd murmured. Phones capturing everything. They're not even trying, someone said. No, Sarah whispered. They're trying not to hurt them. 1 minute. 23 strikes thrown. 0 landed. The twins hadn't countered once. Carson was breathing hard, sweat on his forehead. This was wrong. All wrong. Why won't you fight? He shouted. Blake's voice was quiet. We are fighting. You just don't recognize it yet. That made Carson angrier. He charged again, throwing everything punches, kicks, combinations from years of training. Impressive technique, good form. It would have demolished most opponents. But Blake moved through it like smoke. Each strike came inches away but never connected. The way Blake moved was textbook, classical. The kind of movement you only get from thousands of hours of drilling. Coach Anderson watched with different eyes now. Those weren't lucky dodges. Those were trained responses. High-level trained responses. Olympic-level defensive patterns, he whispered to himself. Reed rushed Bryn, arms out to grab her, force her down with weight. Bryn stepped in, closer than expected. Suddenly, Reed was spinning gentle wrist rotation, subtle weight shift, and 200 pounds rotated through empty air. Bryn had redirected his entire mass with minimal effort. Reed hit the mat on his back. Not hurt, just shocked. He looked up at Bryn like she was something he couldn't comprehend. The crowd gasped. What was that? Did you see? 90 seconds. Carson alone now, Reed still on the mat trying to process what happened. Carson came at Blake with everything left. Faster, harder, desperate. The smirk was gone, replaced by dawning realization he'd made a terrible mistake. Blake's defense shifted. Less evasion, more redirection. He caught punches and guided them away, caught kicks and set them down gently. Every movement is precise, controlled, like a teacher correcting a student's form. The crowd had gone from laughing to silent to awed. Students were lowering their phones, just watching. This wasn't a fight. This was a demonstration. A lesson in the difference between training and mastery. They're toying with them, a student whispered. No, another replied. They're showing mercy. 2 minutes. Carson stopped, hands on knees, breathing like he'd run a marathon. Reed sat on the mat, staring at Bryn like she was an optical illusion. 34 strikes thrown, 0 landed. The twins hadn't broken a sweat. Carson straightened, face red from exertion or humiliation. Impossible to tell. Hands shaking. Not from fear, from exhaustion. From horrifying realization he'd been completely outclassed, and they hadn't even tried to hit back. What are you? He breathed. Blake's expression didn't change. We're students, just like you. We earned our place here, just like you. The difference is, we don't need to prove it by hurting people. Carson looked at the crowd, saw the phones, saw faces staring not at him, but at the twins, with respect, awe, recognition. He'd wanted to humiliate them. Instead, he'd revealed them. The twins had barely moved 20 feet from their starting positions. Their breathing was still controlled, still calm, like they could do this for hours. And suddenly, horribly, Carson understood. This wasn't their limit. This wasn't them trying hard. This was them holding back, showing restraint, demonstrating exactly how much they were choosing not to hurt him. Everything he'd built his reputation on, strength, dominance, never backing down, all crumbled in 2 minutes of not being able to land a single hit. Reed had yielded without saying it. He was done. Carson had one choice left. One desperate move to salvage this nightmare. He saw the weight rack near the wall, grabbed a 5-pound plate. Against the rules. Dangerous. Stupid. But he was drowning in humiliation and couldn't think straight. Carson, no! Coach Anderson shouted, moving forward. But Carson was already swinging the weight toward Blake, a wild arc meant to finally land something. The gym erupted in shouts. Diane Brooks pushed forward, but she was too far away. Students screamed. Some covered their eyes. Blake had 1 second to make a choice. Let it hit him and get hurt. Or stop it. Really stop it. He chose the third option. Blake stepped inside Carson's swing, closer to danger, not away from it. His hand came up, palm open, and touched Carson's chest. Not a strike. A push. The gentlest application of force. But it was precise. perfectly angled, using Carson's own momentum against him. Carson staggered backward, the weight falling from his hand and clattering harmlessly to the floor. He tried to catch his balance, couldn't, and sat down hard on the mat. Not injured, not hurt, just completely, utterly neutralized. The gym was silent. Complete, absolute silence. Total contact time, .8 seconds, one touch, and it was over. Blake stood there, hand still extended, like he'd simply pressed a pause button on Carson's entire attack. The crowd couldn't breathe, couldn't process what they'd just seen. That level of control, that precision, that wasn't something you learned in a regular martial arts class. That was something else entirely, something almost impossible. Carson sat on the floor, looking up at Blake, and for the first time in his life, truly understood what it meant to be outmatched, not by strength, not by size, by skills so far beyond his own that there was no comparison, no hope, no chance. Blake extended his hand to help Carson up. Carson stared at it. This hand that had just defeated him without even trying. This hand offered compassion, not triumph. In mercy, not victory. He didn't take it. Couldn't. The humiliation was too complete, too total. He just sat there, broken. Coach Anderson blew his whistle, but nobody needed the official call. Everyone in that gym knew exactly what had just happened. The impossible had occurred. The diversity hires, the charity cases, the kids who supposedly didn't belong, they'd just demonstrated a level of skill that nobody in that building could match. The twins had won without throwing a single strike, without hurting anyone, without even breaking a sweat. And somehow, that made it so much worse for Carson than any beating could have been. The gym stayed frozen at that moment. Phones still recording. Breath still held. Reality is still sinking in. Then, from the back of the crowd, someone's voice cut through the silence. "Wait. I know them. I've seen them before." Sarah Ashley Martin was standing now, phone in her hand, screen glowing. Her voice shook not from fear, but from shock of discovery. "I spent 3 days searching," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Couldn't find anything, but I just found it." She held up her phone. On the screen, a video was playing. Grainy, old, 7 years old. Students nearby leaned in, squinting at the small screen. Then their eyes went wide. "Oh my God," someone whispered. The video showed an arena, massive, 8,000 people in the stands, flags from 30 countries hanging from the ceiling, and in the center, 2 tiny figures in traditional white uniforms. 2 7-year-olds performing a synchronized form that brought the entire arena to its feet. The camera zoomed in on their faces. Blake and Bryn Brooks, 7 years younger. Same focused eyes, same controlled movements, same impossible precision. Junior World Taekwondo Championships. Sarah read from the screen, voice getting louder. Seoul, South Korea. Synchronized Patterns Division. Gold medal. Youngest competitors in tournament history. She looked up at the crowd, then at Blake and Bryn. They weren't just competitors. They were champions. International champions. At age 7. 200 bappas. The whisper that followed was like wind through trees. Phone to phone, student to student, the video spread. Within 30 seconds, half the gym was watching it. Within a minute, everyone had seen it. The comments on the old video told the story. "Best demonstration I've ever witnessed in 30 years of judging. These kids are prodigies, future Olympic athletes for sure. Perfect 10s across the board. I've never seen that at this age." Coach Anderson took Sarah's phone with shaking hands. "Watch the video. Watch those 7-year-olds move with precision that professional athletes spent decades trying to achieve." He looked at Blake and Bryn standing in his gym, looked at Carson sitting on the mat, defeated. "You've been holding back," Coach Anderson whispered, "this whole time." Blake's voice was quiet. "We retired 7 years ago, after our father died. We made a promise to our mother, no more competitions, no more violence. We kept that promise, until now." "You could have destroyed them," Coach Anderson said, "in the first 5 seconds." "Yes," Bryn said simply, "but you didn't." "No," Blake said, "because our father taught us that a black belt isn't about what you can do. It's about what you choose to do." The crowd was silent, processing this. The twins everyone had laughed at, called diversity hires, accused of not belonging, they were legends. Child prodigies who'd conquered the world stage before most of these students had learned to ride a bike, and they'd chosen mercy, chosen restraint, chosen to demonstrate rather than dominate. Carson, still sitting on the mat, finally understood the full weight of what he'd done. He hadn't just picked on new students, he'd tormented retired champions, kids who could have humiliated him in seconds but chose not to. His hands covered his face, his shoulders started to shake, not from anger, from shame, pure, crushing shame. The video on Sarah's phone kept playing. 2 7-year-olds on a podium, gold medals around their necks, their father's hands on their shoulders. The last moment of pure joy before tragedy took everything away. Principal Wilson, who'd just arrived, stood frozen at the gym entrance. He'd told these kids they didn't belong, suggested they'd be better at a different school, and they were champions. Literal world champions. The pattern had broken. The narrative had shattered. Everything everyone thought they knew about Blake and Bryn Brooks was wrong, and there was no going back from this moment. The truth was out, and it changed everything. The silence broke when Carson stood up, slowly, unsteadily, like someone who'd just had the ground ripped out from under him. He looked at Blake and Bryn, at the twins he'd called charity cases, diversity hires, kids who didn't belong, world champions. That's who they were. That's who they'd always been. His voice came out broken. I didn't know. Blake's response was quiet, firm. You didn't ask. You assumed. I thought you were taking something from me. A spot I earned. Bryn's eyes didn't soften. We earned our spots too. Different tests, same standards. Check the records. Principal Wilson, still at the gym entrance, pulled out his phone with shaking hands. Opened the admissions database. Scrolled to the Brooks twins files. Entrance exam scores. 98th percentile. Both of them. Academic scholarship. Full ride based on merit. His face went pale. He'd dismissed these students, suggested they didn't belong, and they'd outscored 98% of applicants. Top 5% of entrance exam scores, he said, voice barely above a whisper. Academic scholarships. Merit-based. The crowd murmured. Some students looked ashamed. Carson stood in the center of the mat, the weight of his actions crushing him. 400 students watching, phone recording. This moment would follow him forever. I was wrong, he said, voice shaking. About everything. The gym stayed silent, waiting. You didn't take anything. I was scared. Scared you were better than me, so I tried to make you seem less. Rate. His voice broke. I'm sorry. To both of you. To everyone. I'm sorry. Reed stood up, walked over to Carson. Me too. I went along with it. I laughed. I filmed it. That makes me just as guilty. Bryn looked at Blake. Silent conversation. Then Blake stepped forward. We accept that. But what matters now is what you do next. Carson nodded, tears on his face. What do I do? How do I fix this? You can't fix it, Bryn said. But you can start by telling the truth. Blake turned to face the crowd. Dad used to say, see the story behind the face, he said, voice carrying across the gym. We all missed yours, Carson. You missed ours. Everyone here did. He gestured to the crowd. You saw our skin, heard where we came from, decided we didn't belong, that we were less. Bryn stepped beside her brother. We stopped competing 7 years ago, after our father died, after our mother was injured. We made a promise focus on school, never use what we knew unless we absolutely had to. We kept it, Blake continued, through harassment, through insults, through humiliation, because Dad taught us that having the power to destroy someone and choosing to teach them instead, that's what makes you strong. The words hung in the air. Students who'd laughed looked down. Students who'd shared Carson's videos deleted them. Students who'd stayed silent felt the weight of their complicity. Sarah Ashley Martin stepped forward, phone in hand. I watched everything and did nothing, she said to the crowd. That ends today. She uploaded the championship video to Instagram. This is courage. Blake and Bryn Brooks chose mercy over victory. Riverside Prep needs to learn from them. Within minutes, it had 1,000 shares. Principal Wilson stepped forward. This school failed you, he said, voice heavy. I failed you. We saw what we expected instead of who you were. He turned to the crowd. Effective immediately, mandatory implicit bias training for all staff. Student-led diversity councils with real authority. Complete review of how we treat every student. He looked back at Blake and Bryn. It's not enough, but it's a start. Coach Anderson approached the twins. I'd like you both to help with our martial arts program, he said. Not as students, as instructors. Teach us what real discipline looks like. Blake and Bryn looked at each other. We'll think about it, Blake said. Carson stepped forward. Would you teach me? Not just fighting, the discipline, the respect, all of it. Blake studied him. Real training means facing yourself. The parts you don't like, the weaknesses you hide behind cruelty. Are you sure you can handle that? Carson nodded. I just faced myself in front of 400 people. I think I can handle it. Blake extended his hand. This time, Carson took it. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But a beginning. The crowd began to disperse. Diane Brooks approached her children, tears streaming. You stayed true to yourselves and your father, she said, pulling them into a hug. He'd say you won twice today, the fight and your souls. Blake and Bryn held their mother. Does this mean we can do karate again? A small voice asked. They turned. Little Emma Brooks stood there, eyes wide. Blake knelt down to Emma's level. Maybe, Em, he said. But if we do, we teach you what Dad taught us. It's not about being the strongest. It's about knowing who you are and never apologizing for it. Emma nodded. Can I start tomorrow? Bryn smiled, the first real smile since this whole thing started. We'll see. As they walked toward the exit, they passed Sarah, still posting, making sure the truth spread as far as the lies had. Thank you, Bryn said. Sarah looked up. For what? For speaking up at all, Blake said. That's more than most people did. They left the gym together, the Brooks family, walking into an uncertain future but walking it with dignity and tact. Behind them, the gym lights started to go out one by one. The demonstration was over, but its impact was just beginning. By Monday, the video hit 10 million views, but it wasn't the fight people shared. It was the moment after. Blake's hand extended. Carson's tears. 2 kids choosing to teach instead of destroy. The comments told a different story now. This is what real strength looks like. They could have destroyed him. They chose mercy. Everyone needs to see this. Not hate. Hope. Riverside Prep changed. Not overnight, but gradually. Students spoke up. Teachers questioned assumptions. Sarah started a podcast about the twins' story. Carson completed his community service and became the first student to sign up for the twins' martial arts class. The culture shifted because 2 kids showed them something they'd never seen before. Power wrapped in compassion. And somewhere, in whatever comes after, Daniel Brooks smiled. His children had honored him perfectly. They'd used their power not to destroy, but to teach. They'd become exactly what he'd raised them to be. Warriors who fought for something bigger than themselves. Champions, not just of sport, but of character. And that gold? It never tarnishes.